Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview on Human. Today, we will be interviewing, Barbara Badolati. She is a number one best-selling author that has been featured in the New York Times. She is also, she has also, excuse me, she's also a global retreat facilitator and much, much more. But I will let her introduce herself today. Oh,
Hello,
Barbara.
hello.
Hey, how are you
Good.
doing?
We're together. I'm trying to find a little spot in my home that I'm moving from. Hello, everyone. Hi, Troy.
Hey, how are you doing, Barbara? What's going on? It's nice to see you again. You were
Oh, my
very blissful.
goodness.
Yes,
Well,
indeed.
it's the summer solstice if you're in the northern hemisphere.
Nice, nice, nice.
So that
Okay,
feels good. Is it sunny
okay,
where
okay.
you're at?
No, actually, we just got through a thunderstorm.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
just rained.
I love thunderstorms, and the Pacific Northwest doesn't have thunderstorms with all the rain, but no thunderstorms with the air pressure and all of that. So I love that you had a thunderstorm. And I have sun, which is kind of unusual for Seattle too.
Interesting. Is Seattle a rainy place? I've been to the west side of America, but I've been to San Francisco. I stayed out there for 6 months, so I know that it
Yeah.
rained a lot. The sun barely came out.
Yeah, the
Interesting
same kind of
scenario.
thing, right? But I don't have to shovel it. So I'm fine with that. And also another blissful thing that happened today was, well, actually last night was I watched the live stream of Stonehenge with the sun coming up for the summer solstice. And
Nice.
thousands of people attend this, right? Because I mean, Stonehenge was built with one of this purpose of honoring the sun for the solstice, and it's live streamed, so it was really so peaceful and loving and humbling, because without the sun we wouldn't survive. I mean, we
Very
talk about the
true.
rain just now, but it's really like honoring the sun with the summer solstice. So I'm quite sunny today. I am doing pretty well, even though, to be honest, I also feel like there's a lot going on and a little bit like all over the place. And so I think it's really
Me too.
important, yeah, that we're grounded.
I saw that post that you posted that was concerning that, and it resonated with me a lot because I've been going through, with me and you both in the same situation of moving into a new place. We also know the stresses that could come with that, plus having, a new job where I'm kind of trying to get more hours, just to maintain while I still bring people human. It's a it's definitely a work in progress, right? I don't want to be too negative. I wouldn't want to have a negative outlook too much, but it is frustrating. And I know that, people rarely talk about that stress that comes with that, right? The stress of surviving while living out your life purpose and then questioning what that looks like moving forward, you know?
Yeah, and also we're
So,
impacted with so many other things happening cosmically and in the universe and on our planet. And so I think it is important that we at least acknowledge that we're maybe feeling that way, just because maybe that is our new normal and
mm,
we can embrace it.
mm, interesting that you say that. That's interesting. I did not have a question for that, but you just sparked off a question in my head. I love talking to you as usual, Barbara.
I
I
love
wanted
talking
to
to you too. And I'm so honored that we get to do this. So thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored. Thank you.
you're very welcome. Oh, by the way, I did take your advice. And can you hear me correctly? I am using a specialized mic for the phone, a shotgun mic, that will not that will limit the interruptions that you've seen in the previous interviews where, my voice was skipping out a bit. It's actually directly in front of me right now.
Yeah,
So,
sounds good.
thank you for that piece of advice, and encouragement. What I wanted to do was jump into the interview. And for one, please introduce yourself to the audience for those that will be watching this at a
Mm.
later time, and also for those who have never met you or who are probably new to your page also.
Wow, I should practice this. I should know my pitch, but I don't. And it changes too, right? We all are evolving, so it can change. So my name is Barbara Badolati. You pronounced it exquisitely. Thank you very much. Took me
Oh,
years
you're
before I
welcome.
knew how to pronounce it. But my mom taught me to reverse Badolati and lot of body. And she said, if you tell people it's a lot of body and then just flip it, Badolati, people will pronounce it and they won't forget it. So that's been my
I like that. That's
I
cool.
know. I can't wait. I really hope we get to talk about my mom. So, yes, my name
We
is
will.
Barbara Badolati, and I have been in the wellness industry for 40 some years. And it has taken on, as far as my livelihood, lots of different shapes and sizes, from corporate wellness to owning different yoga studios, teaching, leading global retreats, mentoring other people that are wanting to get into this field as far as wellness coaching and retreat facilitating. I love people and I really want to see them thrive and, excuse me, support them in whatever way I can. So I would say that that's my true passion. And I've always been moving, like not just physically moving from a house to a house, which is true, but also
Hmm.
physically moving, dancing, being active, in appreciating nature. And so those are some ways that keeps me healthy because I didn't used to be healthy, and also to
Hmm.
guide other people to a healthier lifestyle and moving their bodies and loving themselves and realizing that their body, mind, spirit, heart, all of it, and that every single day is a little bit different, but they always have themselves every day.
Mm. Well, let us start with the history of where you're from.
Okay.
Where are you from originally, Barbara, and where are you now?
So my parents were in Chicago, and then because my dad had a stroke, my mom was 8 months pregnant. They
Mm.
moved to my mother's hometown of Muskegon, Michigan. So that's where I'm from. And then I've lived in many different places: California, Toronto, the Carolinas, and now I live in Seattle, Washington.
Mm. Okay.
I
Okay.
moved here about 8 years ago.
So where would you say your predominant upbringing was at?
West Michigan.
West Michigan?
Hmm.
Can you give us some insight as to what that looked like? I've never been to West Michigan before.
Yeah, so Michigan, automotive, right? Think of the big D and Motor City, and where all of your vehicle parts from visors to motors are made primarily in Michigan. So a lot of
Mm.
industrial areas, but also because of this beautiful body of water and the sand dunes, which are like no other. In fact, the sand is so fine, that is one of the reasons that it works really well for melting metal into car engine molds, because the
Mm.
sand cools that down. But it's also this beautiful place on the planet that has Lake Michigan, which is, oh, I mean, it's almost like looking at the ocean. Some people think that there's a
Hmm.
body of land on the other side, which there is, but visually, because of the curvature of the planet, you can't really see it. So you have waves, and it freezes in the winter and you can walk on the icebergs, and there's the sand dunes, and just the whole ecosystem is just really, really beautiful. So there's a lot of tourism there as well, especially in the summer. So it's a great place to play
Interesting.
in the summer, yeah, and fun in the winter too if you like snow and all that goes with that.
I love snow. No, I'm from New York.
Ah,
I do.
yeah.
I do. I was born in just a little backstory. Born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. Been through plenty of blizzards. Definitely got to play in the snow when I was younger. I did not move down to Florida, even though I'm in Texas now. I did not move down to Florida until my later years of life, like 24, 25. So,
Yeah, and I love
yes.
the seasons,
hmm I do
right?
too.
Yeah.
Autumn is beautiful.
Mm.
Like autumn is just like that perfect breeze coming through while the leaves are falling. I have the perfect song for that too. Like I was just listening to this song that's dedicated to autumn. It's an amazing song. Oh, by the way, before I
What's the
continue,
song? Are
a
you going to
fun
put it
question.
in? Yeah, are you going to
Uh,
put it in the notes what the song is? Because now
uh,
we're all sitting on
well,
the edge of our seats. Like, what's the song?
I would have to look through my Spotify
Okay.
again because I do have an exquisite music collection that's over like 5,000 songs deep that I've scoured through different genres of music and have made this playlist like over the last 5, 6 years. It's a very, very extensive playlist of smooth music. I oftentimes tell people I'm a connoisseur of music because I used to produce music at one point.
Mm,
So,
I
yes,
love
indeed.
music. That's a
I love
common
music too.
thread, don't you think, for everybody?
I think so, but
Yeah.
can't you tell a lot about a person by the music that they listen to, right? Like, I think so. If because what happens is the music is affecting your subconscious mind, right?
Yes.
I don't want to make this interview all about myself, but
No, it
um,
isn't. I mean, I think what we want is we want people on here to be relating, and so I
true.
think it's really fun to even share your playlist with, like they say, even when you go on a date, like share your playlist. You can learn a
Yes.
lot about the other person, and then and I too love all kinds of world music. I mean, there's just so much out there, and yeah, we could have a whole talk about music. That
So
maybe
one
that would be a good
last thing
campfire.
is I already did have a campfire on it. It was called Sonic Alchemy, which was the previous name to a band that I was trying to form. That never came into fruition, but I switched it over to a campfire session, and you missed it because we talked about the way that frequencies relate to the human body,
Exactly.
how these frequencies actually, some of them are good for you, some of them are unhealthy. What is the target value that they're aiming at when they're producing these frequencies, right?
Yes.
So I think that was an interesting take. But I wanted to say that you lived or you were coming up in a day and age where I feel like music had a texture. So there's a group of people called sneaker pimps. You may know of them. I'm unsure if you do. Very amazing band from the 90s. They were into trip hop. Very amazing texture of music there. You could actually hear and feel the texture of the music when they put together their songs. I think that music back in the day just it there was a different grit to the way that it was produced. And so people
Mm.
were pouring their hearts and soul into it to really bring you these pieces of music that were amazing. I think certain ages of music were overlooked. I'm heavy into lounge music, extremely heavy into lounge music. And so, yeah, maybe when we get over the interview, I'll give you a
Yeah.
call and
Does
we can further discuss.
right. I know, because I was like, well, does it change throughout your life as far as what you're attracted to as far as music and sound and so on? Or
Um,
do you really resonate with that and that's pretty much your go-to?
it
Whose
doesn't
interview is
change
this,
too
Troy?
much. This is funny.
I
No,
love it. It's, you know what? It's
look,
a bad thing because it's part of coaching, right? So coaching
hmm
is all about curiosity and asking questions and everything. And so just kind of naturally, because I am curious, like when you said that, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like always something that's consistent for him. So anyway, we can chat later, but
you can definitely check.
okay.
So, early on in life, I did see in your talking points and biography that your mother remarried when you was really young, and then all of a sudden you had a plethora of sisters and brothers. So, how did that impact you growing up in your upbringing? What did that feel like?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when people say, what's your birth order? And I think, well,
Mm,
I I mean, my mom was 8 months pregnant. She had miscarried 4 times before she finally was pregnant with me. And my father then had a stroke, and he was 25 years her senior. So it's quite a love story. And so they moved back. So I was really this only child for a little bit, right? For the first couple of years. And then when my father passed away and my mother remarried, my stepfather had 6 children.
Mm.
And so I'm the youngest now with 6 children. And so all of a sudden I had all these brothers and sisters at age 3. And being the youngest too, actually Brett was a year younger than me and Jackie was a year older than me. And then there were the twins, Mark and Marva, and then also the older ones, Linda and David. So
Mm.
my mom said on her honeymoon that she was making pancakes for 7 children and a husband. And so that was, I mean, I really love that. First of all of a sudden I had all these playmates and siblings. And I think too, because that part of my heritage is Italian, that family vibration and experience is just in my blood. And
Mm.
but then a lot of things started to fall apart. And that is the my oldest brother David, who we're all very close now still, and he went on to Vietnam. And Linda
Mm.
got married out of high school, and the other 4 went back with their mom. But by that time also, which was about the age of 5, then my stepfather and my mother had my younger sister Jill, and then Danny, and then Anne. So all of a sudden now I'm the oldest in a way. And then we
Mm.
all reunited probably maybe 17, 18 years ago. And I was kind of in the middle, right? So because there were still the 5 older ones, and then Brett and the other 4 or 3 siblings from, right? So I'm the only
Mm.
one with the one dad, but they all have the same father, right? But different
Mm.
moms. So yeah,
Wow.
that's a little bit, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think it impacted me in many ways, but I also had the experience of that birth order, which does impact our personalities and right.
Please let
So
us, yeah, please educate us. I'm curious about that. That was my next
yeah,
question.
I don't really know a lot, but I know, and I still get called kind of bossy. But I think besides just birth order, there's also what I've been studying is this called it's this science, I guess. It's called human design. So it has a lot to do
Mm.
with our birth order, our when we're with our astrology, and some other aspects of who we are, where we're born, those kinds of things, like even the location, the environment, all of those
Mm.
things make such an impact, right? I mean, my stepfather was an alcoholic, so that impacted in a different way. I think being abandoned at such a
Mm.
young infant and not having the cognition of why my dad left so quickly, right? That impacts because we don't have the understanding. We just have the visceral, emotional, physical abandonment that we're experiencing that we don't really understand. And so there's a whole lot that
Mm.
happens from that. So yeah,
Yeah, there is.
those first 5 years especially are formative years and impact how our brain is wired.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Mm.
a lot into it. But human design, if you want, there's a lot of free charts, and there's 5 different types of human designs. And there's manifester generator, reflector, and I think one more, I can't remember. And it's fascinating because when you start to learn more about who you are, the more things click and you're like, yeah, that's why I do that. Or that's why I'm perceived as bossy. or that's why
Mm,
I don't do really well in that particular field, for instance. So,
interesting.
yeah, it is interesting. I'm trying to make sure I have enough light on me as the sun goes down, but you can let me know that.
Yeah, so far so good. With the reflector, don't you think those are possibly interchangeable? Like we reflect sometimes, then we have to go for the manifestation and generation part. Like for me, I think generating ideas is where I'm good at. Um,
Mm,
but that takes manifestation to come true, right? But then at one point
yeah.
there was a reflection that happened, right?
And we're
That, you
all of
know,
those, right? We're all a little bit of all of those things because we all do manifest. It's
right.
just that we might be stronger in one area. So, uh, and yes, that generation of or generator of having the energy to see something through, like you have a day job, but you're also doing all of this, and then you're coordinating everybody and you're marketing this. And I mean, that's a lot of different things that takes energy. And a generator has a lot of energy to be able to produce. And you
Mm,
produce music before too. So you probably do have that, but I don't know, like maybe, you know, put in the information in the chart and see. You could be a manifestor generator too. I don't know very much about human design. Uh, it's not my expertise, but I love learning.
I think we all have the innate talent somewhere in us to get what we have to get done, right? I can't maybe speak for everyone, but based on upon my experience of being a creator, when I've had to get things done, I mean, I've done from clothing designs to special effects, narration, a wide range of things, right? But I was in a position where I felt like I had to do this. You know, I had to come and pick up the ball while I felt like it was being dropped. So I think that at one point or another in our lives, we fit these different parts of human design, is what I want to bring it in a full circle, right? I think it depends on, you'll be surprised, like I told my dad recently for Father's Day, that when your back is against the wall, you'll be surprised what you're able to accomplish and what comes out of yourself, right? But without further ado, I was curious because I know this might be a tough conversation to have so far. Well, this part of it in particular. So I want to tread lightly as I enter this segment. But what do you think made your stepdad turn to alcohol to possibly deal with his pain, if that was a driving force as to why alcoholism winded up taking off,
Yeah.
his alcohol use, excuse me.
You know what's so interesting about aging and becoming wiser and having your
Hmm.
own adult life experiences? You build compassion. So part of it is I learned also through the years that my grandfather, his paternal father, right? He was an alcoholic as well. And so I understood more about the chemistry, right? The biochemistry that affects us because there can be different substances that affect people in different ways that can cause addiction, but then there's other people that it doesn't. So part of it is our chemistry. So that helped me understand. Also, looking back and thinking about even also the body symbology. So if we talk about the somatic therapy, I'll share about my own biological father as well and what I theorize about that. But as far as my stepdad, there were several things going on. Is one, it was the 60s and he was in sales, and you took people out for cocktail hour, and that was a pretty common thing. There was a lot of parties and cocktail hours and wining and dining clients. It was part of society's operandi, right? And so that
Mm,
was part of it. I think that was part of that environment that we just talked about, right? And the societal conditioning that was happening. And then also, I mean, people smoked and drank, and right? It's like you can see it if you watch any of the 60s sitcoms or something. So that was part of it. I think also, so then there was also the biochemistry. Then also his oldest son went to Vietnam. And even though I
mm,
was too young to really understand any of that, I could feel, right? I also was aware of all the assassinations that were happening. There was a lot of political upheaval that was starting to happen. There was all of the, right, the like all kinds of things happening in the 60s, even with music, right, and pro-war, I mean, just like an anti-war, and I mean, there was just so much going on. So I think that that caused a lot of stress for a particular generation. That's just my own theory. And then also, his other children went back to his former wife through the courts.
Mm.
Whether she was fit or not, that I don't know. And so there was this, I think there was a lot of stress that we would call stress and upheaval.
Mm.
And people use different things to cope. And if it's already in the societal acceptance that you're going to have a drink every night at 5 o'clock, and then you have a biochemistry that's craving that, and it has an addiction to it, and then gets worse and worse and worse. And I also, to be honest, there was a lot of anger. He had a lot of anger. So who knows what happened to him when he was a child with his dad, that was suppressed and that inappropriately came out when he was a dad. So that's some of my theories as to all of that. And now we have a lot of different ways that we can heal and cope and have treatments and not let people get away with it too long, and having cocktail hour every night. So that was just part of that generation too. Now
Yes,
it
it
would be
was.
different. Mm-hmm.
It's different, but I will say that I do know some people that still practice cocktail hour. Not myself, but I know some other people that do. And it's very interesting to see what, especially with so much work that has to get done and people wanting to escape, forms of escapism, right? I think that's pretty common within today's society. Still, it's just dressed up different, right?
Yeah, it's a
So,
totally different. Yeah, it's a different. I hear you. And I don't really. I don't practice any of that. So in fact, I gave up just for the experiment of it, of not drinking 2 years ago. And I think I've had like 2 or 3 drinks in the past couple of years, just by choice, giving myself that option, because I really want to be fully engaged, and I really want my brain to be healthy. And
mm,
even if there's painful times, and there's times that just suck, but I'd rather be fully present than numb myself. I've numbed myself too much in the past, and it didn't get me anywhere. It just kept me numb and avoiding what eventually had to be dealt with anyway.
one of my goals, I'm not there just yet, but one of my goals is to strive to see myself at 100% without any crutches. I consider crutches to be like the use of any type of form of drugs that will lead to your mind, in a
Mm-hmm.
different direction or a form of escapism, right? I do want to see what that looks like for sure, right? It's a journey though, but it'll be an interesting journey. And I came to the conclusion that I don't think any of us are really ever at 100% because, how we only use so much of our brain and other factors that are in place, right? There's toxins in the air, things of that nature that kind of affect you regardless. But I'm very interested to see what that looks like without any crutches, right? Striving for that. Moving forward, oh, go ahead. Do you have anything that you
Yeah,
would like
I
to
just
follow
want
up
to
and say?
throw it
Excuse
in.
me.
It's like, it's really easy to say, I'm not going to do that. And what I would like to offer up that's helped me is filling in as much as I can with what does support me. So if I didn't already cultivate a really good, consistent meditation practice, then
Mm,
I probably would use something else to help me cope through it. So there's this, like, you're right, it's not all or nothing though. It's this continually to be self-actualized and learning about ourselves and trying different tools and having enough different tools and support systems and nature and other things, music, right? Other things that can move us through that are healthy, that can
Mm,
be a substitution, right? So there are other things that can support us that aren't crutches, but we definitely need to have those other tools practiced at our fingertips, alternated with other things, and knowing that there's not one or two things that can do it. And everything's a choice too. And you can't do anything wrong, right? It's just part of
mm.
our evolution. It's just like you'll never get it. You don't like maybe what if we never get it right? We don't know, like maybe there's that premise of maybe we're all just doing the best we can. And if somebody needs a crutch, but then one day they're like, this isn't working so well. That's what happened to me when I was working for Northwest Airlines. I was like, I couldn't get up a couple mornings and I thought, I cannot keep doing this.
Mm.
So part of that awareness of the crutch is making a choice to say, well, what else could replace this enough? And then pretty soon, right now, it just naturally starts to tip. Does that make
I
sense?
like that.
Yeah.
It does make sense. You're switching out habits. You're switching out bad or what would be perceived as bad habits for healthy habits. It makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a question that I think is really it's a bit painful, but I wanted to ask it because I feel like this advice could go great for other people in the future who have been through similar things. Um, so in the biography I read also that um, you experienced molestation from your stepfather. And I was wondering, how did you, at a young age, cope with that? Did you let your mother know? What was, yeah, how did you produce an outlet for that? Because that's something that where the body kind of keeps score, right? I get that from a book where the body holds in certain traumas, especially at a young age, into who you are as an adult. And so I was just wondering, what was your process like to go through that and then get over it?
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's one more trauma, right? We have so many traumas. Everybody, whether little or big, doesn't like it can be anywhere on that spectrum. And
Mhm.
so it was a super chaotic time. My mom, fortunately, was able to get a job working second shift, which meant that I, at age 12 and 13, needed to run home from school so that I could help with my siblings so that my mom could go to work. So there was kind of this exchange.
Mm.
And also I was in puberty, right? I was becoming this woman. I was growing breasts and I had my period and I was becoming this woman. And I didn't have really good self-esteem because I was really, really beaten down a lot with my stepdad, emotionally, verbally, not physically so much, although I saw a lot of my mom being violated,
Mm.
that was really interesting. Sometimes there's this fire or protection that happens for somebody else. Like I remember, I just wanted to kill him. I just wanted to beat him like to die. I mean, I just had so much rage.
Mm.
And so at a young age, you can't express that because then you get beaten or violated. So there was that going on inside me, right? Like I was like, I mean, I literally, as this 10, 11, 12, 13-year old thinking, if I could just kill him, then we could have peace and we could all just be out of this misery.
Mm.
So that was one layer that was always happening, like trying to figure out like, how could I do this? And that was the only time I ever had that much rage towards any one person. But I really was trying to find a solution out. And then because I was home taking care of my siblings and my mom was at work from like 3 to 11, second shift at a hospital, when I would put put the babies down because Jill's 5 years younger, Danny's 10 years younger, and Anne's 11 years younger. So at 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, I'm taking care of babies and my younger sister. So once they were all in bed, then there was that homework time, which was like 8 p.m. to 9 or 10 p.m. And so, I mean, we were taught to hug and kiss people goodnight. So part of the ritual was to kiss my dad goodnight. And so that's what led to molestation, because he inappropriately touched me, and that went on from there. I remember that first night that happened, I literally went in the bedroom or in the bathroom and locked the door and slept in the bathtub. I'm not sure what happened or when I woke up, because my mom would have come home like 11:30 or something. So I don't know, at some point he passed out, which was usually the case. Like 10, 11 o'clock, he would pass out. And then that's probably when I went back into my bedroom. So I did tell my mom. And I think now we're in the 70s. So shame and denial and all of that was really prevalent, right? Because my mom had enough to deal with. She's trying to deal with an alcoholic husband who is, sleeping around and coming home drunk and beating her up, and the list goes on, and knocking over the twins or my siblings' not bunk beds, and just constant chaos, financial struggles, like the list goes on. We went from our home to a apartment building, from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, just to try to survive, because my stepdad's drinking away our resources. So there was just like layers and layers. And I've done a lot of healing. And part of the somatics of, like you said, when it gets trapped in your body, that's one of the reasons I went into somatic therapy, is because the body does. It's that subconscious layer and layer and layer of all those different traumas, because we don't always have a way to appropriately express them, right? I couldn't kill him. I wanted to, and I couldn't really do anything else other than just try to keep my family together and surviving as much as possible. So I think for me, I don't really know exactly what happened during that, because I think we block things out as well. But I know if I look at my behavior, very promiscuous, no self-esteem, no respect for my body, not really recognizing what an incredible vessel it is, denying my womanhood in many ways, like not even having children, because I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So, again, just trying to come from a place of compassion and healing, because those kinds of things really are trajectories for other choices in our lives. Like even the men I would choose to be with were so abusive. But now I look at that and I think, well, of course they were. That's all I knew. And I also knew they're going to leave me, because that's what my first dad did, right? It's in that subconscious pattern. So of course they're not going to love me, and of course they're going to leave me. And I might even leave them first to play it safe, because they're going to leave me anyway. So I'll leave first. So there's just, there's a like, but that's okay. I mean, right. And I've really embraced a lot, and I've healed a lot, and I love myself through all of it. And I also really look at that inner child and that younger woman and that woman in her 20s and all those choices. In my move right now, I came across a journal from my 1980s. And as I was reading it, I just thought, wow, I'm so proud of you. And look at how messed up you were. Look at how you didn't know about that. And of course this was going on. So to have that perspective and
Mm,
love on your younger self, I think also is really healing. That part of me that didn't know how to get help, or my mom just couldn't deal with it. I mean, it was just like one more thing. It was like, so
wow.
we survive, right? And then eventually we find ways to thrive.
Mm. I love the way you said that. This is very true. Very true. What is a memory that you can remember that brought you total bliss when you were younger and still makes you happy to this day?
I love to dance and I love music. And I remember I would sit on our screen porch when I was really little, like maybe 7 or 8, and I would whistle with the birds. So they would like chirp, and then I would chirp back. And I just remember doing that for I don't know how long. But, and then also another thing that brought me bliss was my grandfather, when I would go visit him and it would rain,
Hmm.
if it was warm especially, we would go out to the screen porch, and it would be he would say, let's just listen to the rain. And I remember listening to the rain and the smell and even the lightning or whatever. And that's a really fond memory, that I could feel that connection with everything and how amazing nature
Mm.
and this planet, and just that quiet, like that was a sanctuary for me in all of that chaos I was in, right? It was like he didn't know anything that was going on either, but he knew
Wow.
to expose me to things like that. So that's when I still love that.
You sometimes people can sense what's going on, even if you don't say it.
True,
I'll
I'm
let you know
sure.
that. You just never know. Oh, um, how was it to have to become a responsible adult, right? And this is going to be a particular question. It's going to be kind of broken up into parts a bit. But how was it to become a responsible adult at a young age, and did that impact you being a child, right? Or you being a younger person? Because I feel like when we're forced to grow up quick, it impacts us in a certain way. It almost strips us of that like childhood. So I guess the question is, how did that impact you? And then moving forward, what do you feel about that in general in today's society? Right?
Well, that just went right to my heart, because, and I still feel this way. Like
Mm,
sometimes somebody will talk about what they did with, like even when you see, and it's not like I don't want people to not have this. I do want people to have this. But my inner child is like, oh, I wish I would have learned how to ski when I was a kid, or I wish I would have learned how to just get to try different things, art, and explore this. Or I see a child in school that's like, especially like a Montessori or something, where it's all hands on. And I do believe you're right, I really was stripped of that. And I
mm,
had this little plaque on my wall for years that said something like, an unhappy childhood does not mean you can't have a happy adulthood, something like that. And so I did my
mm,
best in my adulthood to give myself as many opportunities to experience things I didn't as a child, but you just can't. And it does. I mean, I really just, it breaks my heart. And then I do my best to remedy that. But yes, I do
mm,
see that at times. And I do recognize, like, when I feel that, I don't really stay in the woe is me, and or get angry because, damn it, why didn't I get to do that too? Or why didn't I have parents that could pay for things that I wanted to do? Or why did I
mm.
have to take care of my siblings, or, grow up so fast? I don't stay there very long anymore. I used to, and, and that's not a healthy place for me to be for very long. So, but yeah, it definitely has impacted me. And it also has impacted some of the choices that I made throughout my adulthood, right? So sometimes now I look back and I think, oh, I wish I wouldn't have made that choice. But I did
Mm.
it because I didn't want to be a parent. So I'm not going to have any children because it's too much responsibility. But now I look and I think, wow, what would that have been like to be a parent, right?
I can see you with the kid for sure.
I know. Everybody's like, how can you not have a bunch of kids? I'm like, yeah, I would love it. So there are times where it really pains me, and I think, oh, but maybe there'll be another lifetime, or this is maybe the life I chose, and this is how it mapped itself out, or maybe there's karma, or maybe there's a whole lot I don't know, or maybe this is who I became because I didn't choose that particular path. Right. So part of it is, okay, I want to accept this and embrace this because this is who I am, and not regret or resent my past or the choices that I made.
Mm. You can say that again. That's
Oh,
really, really,
it's,
people need to hear
I
that.
know it's
A lot of
hard
people
though.
spend times, and it is tough. It is tough. You know, I've been through so much in life that sometimes there's blank spots in my memory of what kind of took place sometimes. It's weird. And I think that happens because I don't want to resent or relive certain moments, right?
Yeah.
Um, oh, but this part of the conversation is the highlight, right? So, in
Okay,
your eyes,
maybe.
what were some, no, no. In your eyes, what were some qualities that made your mother a strong woman?
Oh gosh, I had the best mom, really. She just, her human design, I don't know what it was, but she sparked and she had such a great sense of humor. She always found something optimistic, positive. She always, and she's very, very wise. So she was simple, you could say, but incredibly wise. So she just made the best of everything. And she always found some way, like what would I mean, there's so many examples. Um, like we didn't have a lot of money. So she would, one of my favorite things that she would do is when it came to leftovers, she would make it like a restaurant. And she'd walk around with a pad of paper, right? She'd be like, yes, what would you like this evening? We have macaroni and cheese, hot dogs, and something else like cereal or whatever, because it was like all she had. And then three, two of us would want hot dogs, but she only had one hot dog because it's leftovers. So she'd say, "Oh, the chef just said that we're out of hot dogs. May I interest you in the macaroni and cheese?" I mean, she just was like made things fun and was creative. And I mean, we would come home, I would come home from school and I'd be upset about Sue getting to be on the cheerleading squad and I didn't, and, or whatever. And she would just turn it around. Or I don't like her because, and she would say, well, I wonder how she feels. I wonder how she feels about that. Like, let's step in her shoes for a minute. Or there would be times where we wouldn't want to do chores. And this is kind of crazy, but and again, who has time to do this? But she would put us in the car and she would take us to like a neighborhood that maybe she drove by it going to work or something. And there would be an unkept yard or something. And she would say, now, if you don't want to weed and lawn, mow the lawn and all the chores we need to do, you could, is look like this. Do you want to have a home that looks like that? Because we don't know what their situation is, but they probably are not doing their chores. And then she'd put it, and then we'd drive back home. And it was kind of like she had these lessons that were, and I just think, I don't even, that's why she never slept, because but things got better when her and my stepdad got divorced. There was finally some peace. I don't know that she ever had the opportunity to grieve my dad, because she kind of went from one thing to the next, but the core of who she was so strong and instilled such character in me that I'm eternally grateful for her. She did not have it easy. She went from second shift to third shift so that she could be home during the day, because then there was the divorce. So she was like, okay, I need to take care of these children, but I also need to work. And so she worked third shift at the hospital for 25 years or something, and never slept, because during the day she was taking care of us and doing things at the school. And yeah, amazing. And never complained either. And there was plenty to complain about. So part of who I am and my attitude is instilled from her.
Interesting.
I love some of the people coming through, like Karen from Fave Lifestyles, and I'm recognizing some of the people that are coming through. So thank you all very much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, I say the same thing. Thank you for those who are tuning in. I cannot wait to put this out. This is going to be great. One thing that I wanted to ask is, in your opinion, what does it mean to make the best of a difficult situation? Your mom was a great example of that. So
yeah, she had a great faith also. And I think for me, that also is a deep, it's something I've had to cultivate. Her faith was much different than how I practice, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's just really too much of a world to handle all on our little lonesome. So, cultivating, having your faith or your spirituality or this aspect of whatever is bigger than you, managing our little, our little life here, to me is, what was your question again? It's so interesting when you're in an interview, because you're like an out of body experience. You're talking,
I know those.
you're like, what am I saying? Am I saying what? So what's your question?
Real quick, have you ever put yourself on autopilot? Like, have you ever been talking to someone and you have to think about something else, so you kind of go to the back of your mind and you start thinking about the other thing, but you're still talking to the person in front of you? I've done that before during a job interview. I got caught in a job interview and they saw that happening in real time and they pointed it out. They was like, I can tell that you're somewhere else, but some way, somehow, you're still mastering the job interview. Like, very interesting mind. I call it putting myself in autopilot. It kicks into different modes. But yeah, we have the capability of, I feel like, having an outer body kind of ordeal going on. We're still somewhere in there, but we're just not like totally present. But if you ask me, right, let's say if I'm putting myself in autopilot and then you ask me, hey, what did I just say? I'll quickly snap back into play and be able to tell you what you said. It's like my brain is, the front side of my body is recording everything and I could play it back in nanoseconds, right? But the question is, in your opinion, what does it mean to make the best of a difficult situation?
Oh yeah, right. Hello. I think laughing, right? Like, humor would be one thing. And I do that sometimes. Like, if I do something stupid, right, I'll just say, I'm sorry to myself, right? Like, oh, that was silly. Like, right, rather than beat myself up or be shamed or whatever. So a difficult situation that we create, that's an easy little fix sometimes for me. Sometimes it's bigger and deeper, where I'm like, I need to apologize to that person, or I need to reflect on this and see how I could maybe do it differently in the future, or what else would I say differently. So some of
Mm,
it is that, like in a difficult situation. Also, being present in a difficult situation is important, right? There's something going on. I'm feeling this way. Physically, I'm noticing this is happening. My brain, what am I thinking? What's going on? Like maybe being that observer
mm,
and noticing.
mm,
So being present with yourself helps too, because then you can navigate, right? Oh, that loop is going on in my brain. Or, oh, I'm not breathing. Oh, my belly. Okay, I need to just relax my belly, relax my shoulders. Okay, this is a difficult situation. And even stepping out of it a little bit, right? Like this situation that's affecting me this way is not me.
mm,
So if I take myself out of it and I were to approach it from a friend perspective or a fleeting moment or a situation that needs attending to, sometimes that shift helps too to
mm,
move us from that situation and manage it differently. If it's a long-term situation and we're in the weeds, we're like in the thick of it, then I
mm.
think it's really important just to start to pull back with some body self-care, some awareness, some compassion.
Mm. You keep saying compassion. I have a question. How do you, in your opinion, or how can we, in your opinion, show compassion to ourselves, right? What does that look like to care for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, you know?
Well, first is let yourself off the hook. We're trying so hard and we've got so many pressures. Uh, so compassion is different than empathy or sympathy.
Mm,
Compassion is that kindness and that acknowledgement that we or I am doing my best and I don't have to be perfect and I'm never going to get it right, right? The things that we started talking about in the very beginning. And,
mm,
and what is best for me too. So if we don't have enough time and space with just ourselves because we're going too much or the radio is always on or we're constantly being stimulated, there's no room or space or time to even be compassionate, to even reflect and say, oh, wow, you kind of messed up on that thing. It's okay. Like, how would you treat a 4-year-old? You would be compassionate. You'd be kind. You'd be understanding. You'd be like, well, let's try it again. Let's try it this way. Right. So it's that sweetness that we could bring to ourselves and recognize when we're just being too hard on ourselves.
mm. You bring me to another part of the conversation where it's like, I feel like if we could practice great compassion by uh, focusing on nurturing our inner child, right? When you brought the 4-year-old and how we would speak to the 4-year-old, if we just shifted that over to how would we speak to our inner child, because it's still in there. It might be suppressed, but it's definitely still in there, right? For sure. I know for me it's there. Adulthood plus the inner child sometimes is it's at this it's not at necessarily a war, but they're definitely on the defense to one another from time to time because of the responsibilities that we're told that we have to carry out, as adults and how to present ourselves from societal pressure. All right. So sometimes that suppression takes place. I wanted to also bring the conversation further into the understanding of what is positive psychology. And this is a three-part question, but I'll start off with that piece.
Well, first of all, I love that you said that about our inner children
Mhm.
because they are always with us and we don't pay attention to them very much. And sometimes they have to really get loud before we'll listen and acknowledge them and care for them.
100%.
So, yeah. So, positive psychology is basically creating creating your life so that it is in that thriving state. And it's everything from
Mm,
what's meaningful to us, our purpose, and our engagement with other people, creating healthy relationships, our relationship to ourselves. Also, um, what's our accomplishments that we're proud of, and just any kind of positive emotion that can support us in the life that we're creating. And our characters, our character is built on that. And so that's kind of a general description of positive psychology. And it's really just finding a way to live more fulfilling and meaningful lives, whatever that is for each individual.
mm, okay. Moving past the positive psychology, because I wanted to stick underneath this umbrella, is do you believe that as humans, we can practice blind optimism from what is also deemed as like toxic positivity? Like, do you think that we should hone in on the reality of situations that are in our lives and allow ourselves to go through the range of emotions that we have as humans?
If, yes, if we also have enough tools to move us forward. So,
Hmm.
what can happen is we can start to spiral. Whatever you focus on is where your energy is going to go. And what we know now about positive psychology and neuroscience and the brain and the body and the heart connection, I mean, it's vast. And so I just listened to Goldie Hawn, and Oprah asked, like, how do you stay so happy? And she's like, I choose it. It's not
Mm,
to say we don't want to be aware of all of our emotions and feelings, because they guide us too. And we're not going to be
mhm,
positive all the time. That is a falsehood. It's
mm,
just that I find people can sometimes start to spiral, and then their environment is that, and then the people that they're around are that, and then they just are in this loop and they can't get out of it. Now their brain is starting to get more and more programmed. They're starting to behave and feel that way. Their habits and their are changed. You know what I mean? So if you don't, you just have to be mindful of the rabbit hole. And also, if you're already been in it, let's just say that that was the environment that you grew up in, right? I mean, I'm
mm,
talking to a gentleman right now that I don't even know how he got out of it, but he did. And now it's super important. He's using techniques like EFT, emotional freedom technique, and emotion
mm,
code, and heart math. And there's so many techniques now, and information, and support groups, and therapies that can give us the tools so that we don't have this false positivity, but that we don't end up in the muck. Because when you're in that muck, it's like quicksand. It can really pull you down. And so, also, what's the choice that you're making? Everything is a choice, no matter what.
mhm, mm.
So it's all of that. If you want to kind of think about, hey, Amy, oh my gosh, all these people I know, I'm so thrilled they're here. So that would be,
Go ahead.
and I think that's the other thing too, what we know about like the physiology.
Mm,
So first thing in the morning, before I do anything, I don't get on my phone or anything, but I'm like, hello, angels. Thank you, body. I can't wait. Let's see what happens today. I have no idea. It could be a shit show. Sorry, I should probably say that, but it could be that, but it could also be like magical and mystical, and there could be surprises. In fact, I'm going to focus on where the surprises show up and where those bliss moments are, right? So it's not that I just am in this bliss all the time. It's that I'm focused on that more. And when something like earlier today, a whole bunch of stuff happened, and I thought, whoa, this is really throwing me off. Okay, what's a tool? A tool is to go outside and just stand on the earth right now and be glad that there's the summer solstice and the sun. It was a little thing, but it was just enough to kind of help me get around the corner, because I want to come and be with you in an uplifting place.
mm,
Not to say I wasn't 2 hours ago, but I had enough where I was like, okay, I'm choosing to shift this around.
mm.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's just my mode of operandi, which I mean, I'm 64, so I've been building and building and cultivating and working on this and trying different things, and right. So I kind of have built that muscle
Mm,
of positive, blissful perspectives, and I don't like to hang out too long other than information like I'm feeling this way. What do I need to learn? What inner child do I need to talk to? What environment am I in? What did I eat today? Did I have too much caffeine? Like awareness and information of why I'm feeling this way. Oh, there was just this news program on. I need to turn that off, right?
mm,
That's where our empowerment comes, is making those choices.
mm. Social media is big on that. You take on a lot of different energies and feelings based on someone else's posts. I wanted to revert back to when you talked about spiral, because I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I've told a lot of my friends. So one day somebody was speaking to me about overthinking, and I was like, "Oh, overthinking does not exist." And they was like, "No, it does." I was like, "No, it doesn't." But the reason why I say it doesn't exist is because you're getting caught in a spiral of thought, right? It's a repetitive pattern, even if the thoughts may seem a little different or disguised as a little different, they're still producing the same energy and you're still kind of focused on the same problem, right? And the way that I ran into this is I had an issue going on and I decided to snap out the spiral thought and actually take action and I started feeling better. I started feeling more alleviated, right? So, alleviated and relieved, right, at the same time. So I really do understand what you're saying when you're talking about getting caught in a spiral. I have my own terminologies. I want to write a book later, so I have tons and tons of my own terminologies and phrases. And one of those are called the spiral of thought. And that's when you're kind of getting caught in that cycle in which you were just speaking about. You did say something that was called ETF, was it? What was it
EFT.
called? EFT.
EFT stands
Yes,
for
please teach us about that.
emotional freedom technique. We could do it if you want. We could do a session. Uh, if you have something that's not real charge, but something that's kind of bothering you, you and I could do a little demonstration of that. So you can think about that. I will say too, people, and this probably goes with your spiral theory. If
Mhm.
people are doing the same thing every day, change it up. Brush your teeth with the opposite hand, drive to work or go a different way on your errands. Don't listen to the news. Change how you're on social media. Like, just maybe take yourself off social media for a day, even though we're on it
Mhm.
right now. Start with a glass of water in the morning. Like, do change up your routine, because that will also kind of wake you up to say, oh, what could be different in my life that could move my energy maybe in a different way. Those are little ways that we can make a big difference in our awareness and maybe change some habits too. So do you have a little thing you want to work on with EFT, or you want to skip it? Because it's out there. You
For
can
right
find
now,
anything.
for
It's
the
on
sake of
YouTube.
time, I'm going to skip it, but I'll connect with you later. Like I said, I will definitely want to speak to you after the interview. Um, but I wanted to go ahead and ask you another part to the question. Do you think negative experiences are necessary for us to cherish our positive experiences, and why?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, if we didn't have those, we wouldn't grow. We wouldn't try different things. We wouldn't. Every single person changes. Nothing stays the same, right? And nobody gets out alive. Like, we all have all kinds of stuff that happens to us. It's just like but that's the beauty of life. Like, people are always like, oh, you're so happy. I'm like, no, I'm not. And when I'm not, I really can appreciate when I am, and I can feel the difference. And again, those times when we're not, it gives us information of what maybe needs to change. So
Mm.
yeah, because it's just life. You're never going to have it great all the time. Sorry.
Nah.
Sorry. But most days can be pretty awesome no matter what. If you know, follow some of those, like EFT, emotional freedom technique, has to do with the meridians, which are, the nervous system and the different channels. So when you're doing something like
Mm,
that, where you're changing the nervous system through these meridian channels, now you're changing that subconscious that maybe you feel like you don't have any control, or hypnosis, or there's a lot of different,
mm,
again, techniques.
mm,
So when something's not working or feeling good, that's your sign that something better could happen, you could change. It's an opportunity.
mm. I love the way that you said that. The meridian points, huh? Please, yeah, educate me,
Yeah, so in the
please.
Chinese system, the body system, there are thousands of meridian energy. You probably heard of qi, like Tai
Hmm.
Chi, right? So qi is energy, and that energy flows through our bodies called meridians. And again, this is like human design. I'm not that proficient in it, and I've used it enough to know that it works. So,
Hmm.
for instance, with my Sleep Blissful products, one of the things I have in there is in the insomnia cards. So, with the yin tang, which is one of the meridian points right here, if you just do a little bit of pressure on this area, it helps with sleep. Now,
Mm.
I don't understand it all. Sometimes it's good not to understand it. Sometimes it's good just to try it and see if it works. And if it does, then great. If it doesn't, okay. So that's a little bit about the meridian system. Lots of good information out there and ways that you can apply it.
Hmm. I'll possibly look into that.
Okay.
Meridian points. I've heard about that surprisingly enough in a hip hop song. He was rapping, he kind of put it in the
Love
lyrics, and I was like,
it.
interesting. And then I hear it from you now, and I'm like, let me ask this question so I could educate myself on
Love it.
what 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 is it? So, with your understanding of neuroscience, what can we do to improve our neural pathways as
Oh,
humans?
right. So here we go again. Same kind of information. So there's so much about this. I would say one of the biggest things is through heart math. Heart math, I think, was founded in 1990, 91, somewhere around there. And so just even putting your hand over your heart, because your heart is this muscular organ. It's an organ, but it pumps. So it's like a muscle.
Hmm.
And because of the electric magnetic field, right, when you have um, an EKG and you're an ECC, that is the brain and the heart and this communication system that we have. So we think that a lot is coming from our mind, which it is. The brain also is neurotransmitting to our gut and our heart. And I would say that one of the most powerful things that we can do is just to put our hand over our heart, because that connection, because our nervous system is communicating, right? If you put your hand on something hot in a millisecond, that is communicating to your brain, and then your brain tells you take your hand off, right? So
Right.
this is always going on. And the same with our heart. But we, especially in our society and our Western culture too, we ignore our heart. We don't always listen to our intuition or our gut, which also
Mm.
has trillions of neural pathways that are communicating information to us. And so the heart is powerful. It's like our brain, it's our heart brain. And it wants us to have this heart coherence, especially when we're stressed. So just putting the hand over the heart helps to start regulate the breath and starts to help the nervous system calm down and
Mm.
helps us connect with our heart, which has all kinds of information that's wanting to share. And that's also another place you could be compassionate, right? So
mm,
I can't think of a really specific example, but there's been many times where I've said something where I'm like, oh, it's not really how I wanted it to come out, or I didn't mean to hurt that person's feelings, or I was insensitive, or I was just coming from my
mhm,
own selfish needs, right? Or my ego, and so I'll just put my hand over my heart and just say, I'm so sorry. And I'm also then sending that forgiveness or that love or that apology or whatever, because I know that this field of our heart extends way beyond our body, our physical body. And so just doing that is a way that we can use neurotransmitters and neuroscience and all of that in a very practical, real, and healthy way that is healing.
mm.
So that might just be something that everybody does, is just put your hand on your heart, even when you're driving and you're in a stressful situation, or maybe you have a phone call or something coming up. You just put your hand over your heart and just be like, okay, I'm safe. We're going to get through this, or please guide me. And that's
Mm.
again where your faith can come in too, because you're a whole body, mind, heart, spirit, and the nervous system is like picking up on all of that.
Mm. I wanted to hone in on one piece of the one piece of what you was talking about when it came to emotional intelligence. Interestingly enough, I was in the last campfire session we had, conscious discipline. I did speak about emotional intelligence and how emotional intelligence is not like necessarily a suppression of one's emotion, but more so using your emotions to feel your way through things, right? And also tying that into your intuition. That's what your intuition, I feel like, is based in, right? So the question is, do you believe that emotional intelligence can be used to gain an understanding of a situation or experience that we can learn from based on how we feel about the current situation or experience that has passed, like how we use our intuition? And what does that possibly look like for you, or just a general example of what that can look like?
Yeah, I've heard that people score differently on their emotional intelligence, being that some people are right more equipped to access that because it just is a
Right.
natural. Is that what you take from that
Well,
too?
I don't want the emotional intelligence to be related to stoicism, which at times, in my opinion, it is, because it's like, oh, I don't feel I could control myself within this moment. But I'm saying when you feel things, so I'll use a perfect example. When I was homeless for the amount of years I was homeless for, um, there were scenarios that were unfolding. I literally had to feel like before everybody was saying vibe and energy, I literally had to pick up and be like, the energy in this room is a little bit off. That is based on your feeling, though, which is part of your emotional intelligence. It's another side, I feel like, of emotional intelligence that's not discussed.
Yeah, I would also say that it's also being very in tune with your intuition,
Hmm.
which again is your body, mind, heart, gut connection that is giving you information. Maybe people that have a higher emotional intelligence can tap into those different pathway highways, right?
Hmm.
Where some people just don't have a clue. Like I had somebody that said something to me, and this is repeatedly, and I just think, I don't think she's really smart, and but I don't think she has a real ability to connect and be sensitive to what she says to this,
Hmm.
or what this other person is feeling. I wonder too, just in exploring this with you, if emotional intelligence is also picking up without necessarily being a sensitive person, but picking up on somebody else's emotions, like what they're feeling.
Well, yes, that because what we're doing right now is we're kind of redefining emotional intelligence outside of what I feel like is a stereotypical approach to it, right?
Right.
It is now, which leads to another question, is how do you be empathetic with boundaries? Like, what does that look like, right? Like, I'm I'm an empath. I can feel what somebody else is going through. But at times, which is hard to do, but I can embody that emotion. And then you know what happens? You're carrying around an emotion that's not yours. And you're kind of acting on this emotion in a subconscious manner, especially with so much media nowadays in terms of, oh, look at this and look at this and this here. I could understand almost when it's happening. It's weird, right? Scrolling through Instagram, you might see some stuff that is supposed to emotionally engage you. It's just, oh, wow. Now you're emotionally engaged. And if you don't sit there and check yourself and get rid of that emotion within a certain amount of time, it's going to kind of fall into the subconscious mind space. It might
Right.
already have done that, but when it does, it's a little harder to get it out and be like, where's this feeling coming from? And I
Right.
know it's not mine.
When did
Um,
you when did you become aware, or how did you become aware that you are an empath? Because that's a whole nother conversation.
uh, while I was homeless,
Yeah.
I could pick up what's going on around me. It was my survival tactic. So most things that I've learned, how to talk, how to ask the right question, how to pick up on what's going on around me. When you're homeless for 15 years, you embody a lot of tactics to survive.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's that heightened awareness. So,
Mm-hmm.
a good experiment for people would be, and this again is why I think it's so important for us to have enough quiet time. Because, or even when you go to bed at night, and just, it's kind of fun to go from the time you laid down to all the things that happened to the time when you woke up that day. Do
Mm-hmm.
like a little day review. And when that happened,
Mm.
how did I feel? And when I sat down with that person, right? So sometimes just doing a little review is a good way to learn and be aware. And then the more that you experiment with that, the more
Mm.
you kind of know, well, you know what, maybe next time, because it will happen again, it would be better for me to have a boundary. Maybe the boundary is that I only have 5 minutes with that person instead of letting them have a half an hour of my time,
Mm.
right? Or maybe turning off the social media before I go to sleep and doing that little day review. And how did that feel? And what were the highlights? Could I repeat those in the future?
Mm.
Or do I need, so maybe that's part of this empathy, boundaries, empathic qualities, sensitivity. And again, I just can't encourage that quiet time enough. And
Mm.
we're addicted, it's hard because we're addicted to, I mean, that social media. And I mean, all that is going through the iris and it's going right into the brain. And then it feeds our emotions. And then that becomes a pattern with our again, the neurotransmitters are like, what? Well, firing and wiring, right? And so
Mm.
now we're in this. So I just give everybody, like, you're doing great. And maybe there's something that you hear from this interview and you think, I'm just going to try it. Just like I thought, I'm just going to stop drinking a couple of years ago. I was like, it's just an experiment. It's like, I don't have to do it forever, right? So if you decide, oh, let me experiment and get off social media and shut my phone off an hour before bed, I'll do it for just a week or a day or whatever. Like, it's your life. And
Mm.
so maybe try something different, to, because then to that reflecting, you can also reflect on how it made you feel. If it didn't feel good, or you're picking up on somebody else's energy. And then there's all things you can smudge and Palo Santo and go put your feet on the earth, and you can do other things too to kind of shift things around. You can do an EFT, you can tap your meridians, you can do breath work.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Actually, yeah, tell us, because the campfire session that's coming up, there'll be a presenter who will be focused on breathwork during that time. And so I was wondering, what is, let's say, the science behind breathwork and the benefits that it brings people? I could hear it in the name, but I would like to know from someone that has facilitated groups that, you've led into breathwork.
Well, You can't live without breathing.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And this exchange of, you can think of it like breathing in and releasing, or toxicity releasing, or I mean, there's so many things that can happen with the chemistry. It can be mind altering. It can be invigorating. It can be relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So breath work, I mean, it actually is pranayama, which is prana is life force. So this is taught thousands, 6,000 years ago through the yogic tradition. And then I got this spin, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, to call it breath work. But basically, I mean, all of us are doing breath work, quotations, right? It's just that, how conscious are you? So there's all different types of breath work and techniques and holds, and depending on if you want to go to sleep or maybe you're stressed. But the biggest thing I can tell people is just start breathing and let your belly be soft and notice your breathing. And maybe just try some things like inhale for the same count as you exhale, or inhale and exhale for twice as long, especially if you think about that you're releasing. Like maybe you're releasing, or maybe you want to go to sleep that night and you could count backwards as you're breathing. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, exhale, 4, 3, right? So different patterns, different intentions, different techniques. I mean, the list goes on and on. It'll be interesting to see, because it's Care for the Soul on Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Care
Yeah.
for the Soul, which, without further ado, the book that inspired it, it's right in front of me. Its original title is Care of the Soul by Thomas More. I just wanted to shout that out during the interview because obviously I, I don't come up with these ideas obviously on my own, but they're inspired from other places, right? So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. And if you're interested in checking out the book, amazing book, covers duality of the soul rather than just, oh, this is the beautiful aspects of why we do what we do. It also covers like the dark aspects simultaneously and how that intertwines, right? Very
Yeah.
interesting approach.
And everything is duality, right?
Hmm.
There's evening, there's morning and day. Yeah, I mean, day and night. There's male, female. There's just like, that's our world. So I have to tell you, I I got a massage yesterday, and I'm laying there. And when we got all done, I opened my eyes, and on her bookshelf was Care of the Soul, Thomas More. And I was like, oh, I mean, I've been to her studio like dozens of times. And that book, the spine just popped out. And I haven't read that book in, like, that's like what, 20 years? Like that book has been around a long time. And it
It
just
has.
popped out, and I was like, oh, Care for the Soul is going to be the campfire session. What time is it on Sunday?
It is 5:30 my time, which is 3:30 your time.
Pacific time. Okay, cool.
Yeah, specific time.
All right.
Yes, indeed. Well, I wanted to ask, let me switch this one around actually. How can a person identify their intuitive gifts? That is one thing that because I saw that you embrace your intuitive gifts in the bio that you sent me, and I wanted to hear from you personally. Like, what does that look like to embrace that and apply that to?
Well, that's taken a long time. I'm still not very good at it.
Mm,
Right. Well, one is the physiology. Like, you can feel sometimes your belly, your gut, right? It's communicating. You're getting a bad vibe on this, or bad feeling, or something doesn't feel right. I can't quite put my finger on it. Like, I can't quite figure it out, but something just doesn't feel right.
mhm,
And I think the biggest thing is
mm,
trusting it, right? One is to be aware of it, even to discern it. I think that's also where I'm like, is this in my head or in my heart? Or is this a something from my past that hasn't been healed?
Mm,
Or is this really my intuition? Like even discerning is for me challenging. Um, but I'm getting
mm.
better at it. And you can develop that too. That's another one, another muscle you can develop. And there's some great people out there that really teach you how to do that. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of, again, if there's a lot of noise going on around me and a lot of things I got to do and a lot of, I'm not listening to my intuition very much.
Interesting.
If I if I do have a question that I'm pondering, then I'll ask to, okay, show me a sign or help me understand what I'm feeling, like this intuitive feeling. But there are times where I have like listened to it. Like one time when I was going to leave the airlines and go to college, I was moving and I needed a desk. And I was driving home from work, and all it was is like, I need a desk. And this is before law of attraction, or this is like the early 80s. I didn't know anything. I was really, I just was like, I need a desk. And then I got this little like turn here, and I'm thinking, well, this isn't this turn here. Like, this isn't on my way home. And I did it. I turned,
Mm,
and sure enough, three houses down, there was this desk sitting there, and it was like $25 or something. And I had $10 or $20 on me. And the guy was like, sure, put it in my car. And I was like, okay. I put out a request. And then the universe, angels, whatever, were like, okay, yep, you need a desk. You only have $20. Go here. But I did listen,
mm,
even though it didn't make sense, right? So I think that's the other
mm-hmm.
thing. Like sometimes your intuition, your head is like, that doesn't make sense. And then we disregard it. And then the intuition's got it, then the universe and the intuition's got to find a different way to get you over there to get the desk, right? Or you miss the desk and now you got to go to IKEA and build a desk, right?
Mm.
So sooner or later you will get a desk. It's just like, but how are you, like, your intuition's a shortcut. Your intuition's like, here, go this way, it's faster, it's easier.
I want to share a story, but I don't even know if I still have the gift as well as I used to. I used to have the capability to do premonitions and like project myself a little bit into the future and see what's going on. The first time that that happened was when I was like roughly in my teenage years, 15, 16, 17 roughly. I was homeless in Philadelphia, and I was turning the corner around from this youth center that I was staying at the time. And I'm walking, and there's this open garage, right? I see it all, everything unfold. I see myself walking past the garage. A car shoots out from the garage and hits me, right? So I'm walking. At first, I wasn't going to pay attention to it, but right when I got to the entrance of the garage, something told me stop, and the car flew out right there. It was just like, right? Similar. So as I grew older, though, what I noticed is that I feel like that intuitive gift did not, it just didn't stick with me as much. I don't know. It did save my life several times, especially when I was in Harlem. I lived in Harlem for a while in New York. And we were supposed to go to a party down one block, and something just told me, "Do not go there." And before you know it, the place had exploded with violence, and people were running everywhere and doing various amounts of things to each other. But it was it's very interesting. I think that when you have something and maybe you need to hone it, right? It doesn't mean that I don't still have it. It's just something that I don't feel like has to be used as much, right? But my intuition is still pretty high, you know? So
Yeah, and
very
maybe it's something
interesting.
that we just decide to cultivate more and to pay
Mm,
attention to that more. Like that inspired me because I thought, not, I thought, yeah, I pay attention to other aspects of me and my life. I think I'm going to pay more attention, right? It's just a checking in. It's like, huh, okay. Or like you, it's this little, it's like a flash, right? It's it's very short. It's a little window, and so you got to pay attention because it's just a little window, and
Hmm.
then you can, right, and then you. But the fun thing is when you go through that little window and you listen to your intuition and you are guided by it, then you have the evidence where you're like, huh, wow, okay, that saved my life, or I just found a desk, or right.
I like the way you speak about expanding on certain thoughts because sometimes that's a preventative measure, right? Like, so I used to live a certain lifestyle when I was younger. Not going to kind of get into the specifics of it here. But every once in a while, it's like, hey, don't do this because you might wind up in this situation. Excuse me, I would expand on that. And because I decided to actually focus on that, when it was such a small thought, but I caught it right in the
Yeah,
right moment and expanded on it, it didn't fold out that way, right? Because it wouldn't have ended well, right? And I think these are things that are not commonly spoken about, in just day-to-day conversation with different people. But it's these little things that live in the nuances of our mind and the way our thoughts flow, that I think people should pay attention to, right? Our intuition, the premonition, even the ability to kind of maybe control a gift or to not control a gift. Like when I had my premonitions, I'm not gonna lie, I did not know how to control it. It was random. There's certain gifts I still have to this day that I'm not once again going to speak about at this moment in time within this interview that I cannot necessarily control. It's like a power that's given to me from a different source, right?
absolutely. And
So,
part of it is this quantum field that we're in. We're in a quantum universe. There's all kinds of things
mm,
happening all at the same time. So yeah,
mm,
that's a good point, is that it is it can be fleeting, and knowing that maybe we'll be more acute to the little the little nudge versus the push,
mm,
maybe.
maybe. Can you share with us a story of self-discovery that you have experienced or that you have watched a person experience at one of your retreats? Right?
Oh, you mean transformation or
Oh, yeah, you could say.
discovery?
I think I mean self-discovery because I think there's always levels to us in which it could be a transformation or self-discovery, but I think self-discovery gives way to transformation, right? Like you're discovering new parts of yourself that you want to implement within your life that then leads towards transformation happening, is what I feel.
The biggest times is, I think, when I'm teaching or facilitating movement, especially uh, ecstatic dance, freestyle. I usually have a beginning and an end, and even some guidance through all of the different world music that I use. So there's lyrical, and there's
Mm,
chaos, and there's shamanic, and there's peace and bliss and embodiment and evocative. And so there's all of these different types of music and guiding people through it. Most people say, there's a few, but most people are like, I don't dance, or I don't know what to do.
mm,
And yet, in just even an hour's time, the discovery that they have with themselves and their own body, and all the stress and tension they release, and even using their voice, because a lot of times I'll do that where, like, maybe we're in this shamanic movement, it's just chaos, if you will, and the voice is happening too, like, like it's unpredictable. Well, that gives
mm,
people it gives them permission, and so they're moving their bodies and their voices and their feelings, and maybe even past trauma they don't even know is lodged in there. And when it ends, and then they're in this beautiful, peaceful quiet, I usually drop rose petals in their hands, and they put them on their heart and so on. They smell them, and they're in this really peaceful, after they've sweated and danced and played, and there's funky music that we do fun stuff, and right, they've been through this whole experience
mm.
they've never been in, which tomorrow would be a totally different one, because the music might be different, the day might be different, we're different.
Mm.
And it's just, I always get incredible feedback where people are like, I had no idea I was going to feel like that and go through that. And because you can't know how you're going to experience that until you are experiencing it. And we don't, like right now, you and I have been sitting, or I've been sitting for whatever time, right? So the biggest times that I find people discover about themselves is when they are in their body, embodying all different expressions.
Mm. Interesting. I have some other
you,
questions for you. Yeah, I had to reflect on that.
I was going to say, we'll get your playlist that you talked about in the very
Oh,
beginning, and
oh yeah, no,
we'll do,
I'm
yeah.
definitely gonna share that with you because I think you're gonna use that. You could use that for your retreats. I'm telling you right now, it's like very extensive. It's a lot of music to comb through, but you'll find a lot of stuff that you can definitely
Well, then
use.
come
Um,
to then you've got to come to a movement session.
yeah, that's fine. I
Okay.
actually want to speak to you about that afterwards, for sure. I'm going to call you like right after this.
Okay.
Um, moving forward, I wanted to start to close it out. I know that we're at a certain mark here, but please give us your insight to your book, Sleep Blissful, because I feel like that was not discussed. I did speak to someone else or interview someone else not too long ago that had a sleep manual. And so I was very interested to see, like, obviously the difference in between it, the difference between what he has and you have, because I feel like yours is more paying attention. His is like how you sleep and like the structure in which you place your body. But I feel
Mm.
like yours may be the same thing, but it's more geared towards like maybe the emotional and how you go get into like sleeping. I haven't read your stuff, but I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, so the book is just a little itty bitty. It's like over 100 little natural ways to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake refreshed.
Mm,
So there's a little bit, maybe a little CBD stuff and sleep sanctuary, feng shui, different things like that. And when I work with clients or the sleep retreats that I do, or even the dream analysis and so on, that
mm,
goes into what you're speaking of, which is that deeper place because sleep, yes, is healing and healthy, and we have to have it to survive and be productive and be even in a higher vibration. And it's also our psychic connection. It is where we can connect with spirit, where our dreams can give us insight into the subconscious or healing, where we can let go and start fresh the next day. It can really
mm,
be this rebirthing of a new day. So, sleep does more than just the physiological benefits. And I don't get into that too much in the book, although I do have also a sleep blissful bundle that has a lot more into it, as well as, again, the retreats and workshops and things I do too. So
mm.
the book is just a little touch point.
Okay,
Get you
okay.
started.
I have so much more, but I do want to be respectful of your time, of course. Um, in your opinion, how can we as humans work towards the betterment of our world?
Mm. Well, first, be kind to yourself. Take good care of yourself the best that you can. And realize that everything you think and say and do ripples out and affects everything and everyone. We didn't used to think that or have the scientific proof, but now we do. It's not just woo woo. And so it doesn't have to be you doing, it's your beingness. So before we met today, I knew more important than the earrings were was me just being still and breathing and sending my heart energy out to you, and also my intention of anybody that hears any of this, if it's a spark of inspiration or insight or knowledge, or just even the feeling of being loved and cared for, is what's most important. That's what we give to the world, is who we are. So by us taking care of ourselves, not in a narcissistic way, but just in a really humbling, kind, gentle way, we transmit that to others.
Mm.
And that's really it. And we can't do it 100%, but even if we could do it 70% of our day, not our life, but our day, that's quite a contribution.
It is. I love the way you said that.
And when I'm not doing so well and you are,
Mm-hmm.
that helps me. And then those days where my cup is full and I can share, that helps someone else. So that, again, it's kind of that ebb and flow that life gives us. And we're here for each other, to help each other too.
That's what makes us human, right?
Yeah.
Makes us the species we are. I wanted to also ask, how can being, how can we make being blissful contagious? Like, how can we start that road? Like, maybe paying it forward or something of that nature. What would that look
Yeah.
like?
And it's such a simple thing. Like, you could say a prayer at night. I mean, there's this woman I drive by, she's on the corner every single. Some days I give her things, sometimes I say hello, sometimes I get a green light and I drive by her and I wave or whatever. But you like, we could say a prayer for people, like even if we don't know them, right? Just like, I want every child to have food in their tummy and be safe. And I put that
Mm,
prayer out there, right? So those are like, that's a way to be blissful, right? And nobody even knows about it. Or maybe there is that act of kindness that, again, just that little extension, like even a smile or seeing the best for somebody, right? I had somebody that was just like telling me everything that was wrong. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see the best for you. So that could be a blissful thing. And then appreciation, right? Gratitude. The sun is like, the summer solstice is happening. What else could be celebrated? I mean, we are so fortunate. We have ears that can hear and eyes that can see and a heart that beats without us even having to think about it. Most of us have a place to go to the bathroom in privacy. Most
mm,
of us have some water to drink. Hopefully it's clean. I mean, there's so much in a day that is blissful, and appreciation to me is an expression of that bliss. And it's contagious,
mm.
right? Because if I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love you and thank you, Troy, for existing and creating this, and let's see how this can spread, and maybe people will take something and make their lives better. And so it just continues to snowball.
Yes, it does. Pass it on, pay it
Yeah.
forward. I do agree. Um, and two more questions, and then we'll bring it to a close. Is when do you think our next phase of evolution will come into play, and how will it unfold?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Deepak Chopra, like about 20 years ago, I was at one of his talks, and 9/11 had just happened. And somebody asked, like, what is this all about? And he said that, and this was back then, he said, we're going through another quantum shift. And it's like, what
Mm,
does that mean? Well, about every 10,000 years, 100,000, whatever, if you look through the evolution of the planet, there's
mhm,
this way for a long, 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 long time. And then there's the ice age. And then long, 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 long. And then in a very short period of time, this is so interesting. We were just talking about these little windows. He said, in a very short period of time, there's an evolutionary jump, and then it
Mm.
goes on for a long time, and then it kind of compresses and another. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. Now, 20 years later, after a planetary pause called a pandemic,
Mhm.
and all the consciousness that's happening, and all the cosmic, I mean, every like month there's another eclipse, or planets are in every sign, or I mean, there's all that going on. There's
Mhm.
this there's this whole AI social net, there's this whole thing that's happening. And so, and people are like realizing, wow, I better get healthy and connect with myself, right? So what's happening is, even though it may be 100 years for us, it's a short
Mhm.
period of time when you look at the evolution of a planet and humanity. So we're in it. We're in one of the most incredible times in history. We're in it. Like, we're doing it now. We're in the evolutionary quantum leap that
Mhm.
doesn't happen. We're in it
You are in
now.
a quantum leap.
We're in a quantum leap. So that's why more people are like tuning in and paying attention and wanting to be healthy, and all these different therapies and more holistic and spirituality and all of that. It's really starting to exponentially move,
Mm.
because it's going really fast, even though it may be 50 years from like when it started. Maybe it was started in the 60s. Maybe it started with the Industrial Revolution. But we have this global society now. And also,
Mm.
the other thing that's happening, and this is really great because like your campfires are a good example of this. The other thing that's happening is there's this human craving of connection. And so the systems that we used to have, whether it's education, healthcare, finance, whatever, they're starting to disintegrate. They can't be
Mm.
sustainable. You can't have a world where people are homeless and other people aren't. You can't be sustained that way in a
Mm.
global family. And so you're
Right.
seeing new ways of building homes and new financial systems. And it's starting, like, that's the other evolutionary wave, as the old unsustainable systems are crumbling and heading out, which is why people are freaking out too. But in a way, it's like, no, this is a good thing. We just have to
Mm.
keep moving through it and come together and take care of ourselves and know that things are speeding up and we can handle it. We can do this. We're not the first time that there's been an evolutionary leap. It's
We got
exciting.
this.
We got this. It's, yeah. I mean, at times I think, oh my gosh, but I feel like we're on the other side of it now.
Hmm. And one last question. Excuse
I
me.
can't believe this interview. It's like, this is amazing, all the questions you're asking.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I like that we had a great back and forth. But one last question, because it is getting on the 2 hour mark. What does being human mean to you?
Hi, Troy. That's what it is. Smiling, crying, kind of really touched me when you talked about my lost childhood, and
Mm.
listening to your other interviews with other people too, and hearing everybody's stories. And yeah, that's just having our human experience with our spiritual selves.
Mm. Amazing. Well, without further ado, I would like for you to tell everybody where they can find you at online. Where can they even look for the retreats? Yeah, please let them know all your info so that way,
Yeah,
when
just Barbara
people who
Badolati.
watch this video, oh,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead, excuse me.
BarbaraBadolati.com, and just my name, and Instagram, Barbara underscore Badolati. And yeah, I'm on Facebook. You can find me and all that. But yeah, just go to my website, message me. I do have a couple of freebies in there too. So if anybody's interested in meditation or got matters ebook, those kinds of things are there too. The retreats are good lining up for 2024. So again, just get on my e-list and then you'll get information. Thank you for letting me share that too. Thank you, Troy.
You're very welcome. No problem. I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule and day to come on here and just pour your heart out to us and give us the best that you can in terms of your life experiences and your wisdom. And I look forward to those who are watching you being on Campfire Sessions Care for the Soul coming up this Sunday. And if you know anybody else who would love to tune into the interview or even be in the audience for Campfire Sessions, because we'll have an open space for people to interact with that, please let them know. You know, I'll be more than glad to have them on too. All right. I am looking forward to this being a very, very interesting session. But outside of that, this has been a great interview. And I just want to say, uh, have a great day. And for those who are watching, remember that we are all human.
Yeah. Thank you.
Speak to you later, Barbara.
All right. Sweet dreams, everyone.
That was cool.